You're watching a special GMF show from the European Parliament with 4 very special guests today. They are all part of the Transatlantic Inclusion Leaders Network 2018, and we're going to talk about transatlantic cooperation in the future. Is there any future? I'm going to talk with these young but experienced leaders. First of all, Raumesh Akbari, state representative in Tennessee. This Transatlantic Inclusion Leaders Network, what is it about?
Well, I think it's about recognizing the things that we have in common, the fight against people who do not value diversity, economic issues, making sure that we're all included. So we see that we have issues across both sides of the Atlantic, and we're coming together this week to learn from each other and also learn how to move forward.
Yeah. And building a new network, isn't it? Do you have already a new network, new friends?
Of course. We spent a whole week together from all around the world and from both sides of the Atlantic. And I could say that I can have at least a contact from the other side of the Atlantic that can help me on issues that I experience myself in Europe.
Tarik, Mete, you're from Austria. Do we need a transatlantic cooperation in the future?
Yeah, for sure.
Why?
Because I think in a more and more global world, we need to act global but think local. And I think as a representative from a regional state, it's important to see the regional aspects of globalization and the transatlantic cooperation.
Yeah. Asllan, you're from Montenegro. Do you agree? Is it needed?
I do completely agree. As far as I could see that also the colleagues from all countries all over the world, we share same values, we share common interests, but we share diversity, but we share also the same problems and same threats. So based on that, we have to work together to come out with the best solution for all of us.
Can you mention just one of those problems or threats you will say, okay, this is one thing we can really work together on?
We can work very much together on inclusion, because the world belongs to all of us, and we shall together manage the world.
Okay. But sitting a person from Montenegro next to someone from Tennessee, how can you work together then?
As I said before, sharing the same values and sharing the common interests and looking for economic and other progress, we can see that we can watch to the same problem from different perspectives, and it will help us to solve those issues.
I think the shared values are the basement for this cooperation, because we see we're getting more and more national in Europe and in the United States too. So we have to share the same values. That's the basement for our cooperation. And on this basement, we can put our trust, we can put our cooperation in politics, in NGO matters, in human rights, in politics, in technology. And so we can move on together. I think competition is good, but it shouldn't replace cooperation.
You want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. You see with the rise of the Trump administration in America, you see with the Brexit vote in Great Britain, we have these similar issues where the minority of the folks are being able to get this political platform to promote hate and exclusion. If we want to move forward as a world, we have to look at inclusion and ways that we can work together.
So, yes, sure, Maryame. Yeah.
I would also like to add that we can also work together on economic growth. We can be together to move forward, and we can break some barriers that are mainly differences in legislations, things like that. We can work together to make it more simpler to do also business together.
Yeah. So, because you're a financial analyst, so you are working for a private organization, isn't it?
Exactly. What we do is we are investing in infrastructure, and I think that Europe had a great experience in that field that we can share, of course, and we can also learn from the US experience. And what I would like to focus on here is that we should make the legislation and framework that can help with that.
Okay. So you're now part of this GMF program, this Transatlantic Inclusion Leaders Network. You are not only future leaders, you are the leaders of today already, but let's say these older leaders we have right now, what are you going to demand from them? What do they have to do for you to keep up this cooperation, to keep up this work?
Well, I think they have to take a global perspective. We cannot operate as our own individual countries. We have to recognize that what happens in America affects what happens in Europe and vice versa. And if you are at the helm of power, you have to understand that. You have to have a broad enough view so that you can truly govern. You can't just be in opposition, but you actually can bring people together and help with economic, social, and other issues.
Okay. Asllan?
Surely, I completely agree with Raumesh about that we should think globally, but also I completely agree with Tarik when he said we should act locally. So from a global perspective, we should take local actions to solve local problems that we deal every day with. And the way of solving these problems, of course, can be learned from each other. And this is the new wealth that comes out of this.
And so what can you do? What is your role in this?
My role, personal, in this is to remove the imposed barriers that are imposed by some other people and from a long period of time. To remove those barriers and serve as a role model to others that everything can be achieved. And there is no position reserved for anyone, but with work and with a belief, anything can be done.
Okay. Maryame?
I would like to say that we should embrace diversity in the private sector too, because if we want to build a better world, we need everyone on board.
Okay, Tarik?
I always say we don't have to invent the wheel again. So if I'm talking with the fellowship, with the participants of the Inclusion Leadership Program here, I'm getting so much impressions, so much inspiration, and I want to take it regional to Salzburg, back to Salzburg, to Austria, and share my experiences with other participants from other countries. So I think if we want to face the challenges from today, we need each other, and I'm really inspired of the participants here. Yeah.
You're inspired, but what's your role? Are you just sharing, or can you do something?
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone can do something, and my part is to bring these values, which we are talked about, to Salzburg, to Austria, and face the. I think we have a common problem in all these countries, and that's the language of violence and aggression. And the language of violence and aggression leads to acts of violence. And so we each other need us to prevent this language and come back to the historical aim of many international organizations, peace.
Raumesh, anything to add on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you are able to visit with people from other countries, you gain perspective. That's certainly something I can bring back to America. A lot of my colleagues, they see the view of the world in a very narrow lens. So I think anytime we can look at it from a broader perspective, it can help, and that's what I plan to do, continue to bring back perspectives of working together, of globalism, of our transatlantic cooperation as opposed to America-only policies, made in America-only policies. Then I think it can kind of help us move forward.
So you're not going to just use this network for yourself, but you're going to really share it with your colleagues and with your constituents.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like that is my privilege of being able to be here, to have to take information back and share it with my colleagues.
Okay. Tarik?
Yeah, you're completely right.
Maryame, what are you going to add?
Let's keep being in touch. That's my ultimate message. We can do it together.
Tarik?
I think it's good to do something at the moment, but we should look forward to the future, and it's necessary to find some sustainable long-term solutions for our problems, because we often only think about today and tomorrow, but there isn't tomorrow afterwards, and we should think about that with a strategy, with a common networking strategy. And I think the Young Inclusion Leaders Network is an opportunity for that.
So there is a tomorrow afterwards, and transatlantic cooperation is still alive, and there is a future for it. Thank you so much for being here, Asllan, Raumesh, Tarik, and Maryame. And thank you for watching to this very special Transatlantic Cooperation or Inclusion Leaders Network session. There is still hope, there is a future, and keep on building the network.